Turkey or Fish is the 10th episode of the first season of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is a Thanksgiving episode, and for me it's actually a little bit special. Very quick backstory. I binged watched Everybody Loves Raymond for many years, but I stopped watching it in about 2011, and then last year I was in the States for Thanksgiving, and because there's not a lot to do on Thanksgiving Day when you're a tourist, I watched back-to-back episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond, but it was just the Thanksgiving episodes. And this was one of those episodes, and I enjoyed it so much, it made me want to go back and start watching the show again. So I have this episode, in part, to thank for me rewatching the show. So I had actually seen this one about 2 months ago, but I was really happy to watch it again because it's a really good episode. It's directed by Michael Lembeck, and there will be spoilers from now as I discuss various aspects of the narrative. And this episode focuses on the fact that Debra wants to host Thanksgiving at their house. And I think this is probably something that people can relate to when you're in a relationship. It's pretty common to go between your parents' house and your in-laws' house, but once you have a family, I think it's reasonable to want to start hosting it yourself. And understandably, Marie is not very happy about this, particularly because it's meant to be her year. They went to Debra's parents' house last year. It's now Marie's turn to host Thanksgiving, and she feels like Debra's trying to take it away from her. So Marie initially says, "Fine, have your Thanksgiving, I will do my own." Frank's delighted because he gets 2 Thanksgiving dinners. Debra and Raymond are kind of looking forward to a quiet Thanksgiving. However, Debra has also invited her parents. Ray wasn't exactly thrilled about this, but he didn't make a big fuss. However, he did make a big fuss when Debra said she was going to be doing fish instead of turkey. And Ray's response is brilliant, very well written, great performance from Ray Romano. And little Ali actually says, in Debra's defense, that they had fish at the first Thanksgiving, which was educational and, something that I found very fascinating. I don't think I would have known that had it not been for this episode. Obviously, being in the UK, we don't really celebrate or indeed learn about Thanksgiving at school or anything like that. So educational for me, but not exactly great for Raymond. And things are getting a little bit crazy because Marie eventually says that she will be coming over, and Debra starts to think that this is a trap because she knows that she's making the fish and she thinks it's going to be a failure, so she wants to be there when it happens. And now also Aunt Edna and Uncle Mel are coming over because Marie had invited them to her Thanksgiving, and because she's now going to Debra and Raymond's, they're going there too. So it's turning into this really huge thing that Debra perhaps hadn't anticipated. And to make things worse, we watch as Ray puts the fish in the dishwasher. And it's beautifully done. The way the fish just slides off of the plate. I don't know how many takes it took, but visually it looked fantastic. And the moment where he scrambles into the dishwasher and holds up this fish, it made me feel a bit sick because I would not touch a fish like that. I'm not a big fan of fish, certainly not when they have eyes. And it looked absolutely fantastic. Debra looked a little bit panicked, as one might imagine. Nevertheless, things quickly turn around and everybody's happy, and it's Thanksgiving dinner time and everybody's over at the house and things are going really well. And I love the scene where they're all at the table, and it's beautifully shot, beautifully framed, because at the forefront, we have the kids' table where we have Ali and Raymond, and then straight down we have the adults table with Frank at the head of the table, and it's just a great way to see everybody in one shot. I thought it looked really brilliant. And then Frank chokes on the fish, which is not how they expected it to go. But what I loved about this is that after Frank had finished choking, he was ready to just eat more food. And Robert had a couple of good responses to that, namely telling his father to chew, which I thought was very amusing. I also loved the shot where, I think it's right at the end, where Debra and Raymond come out of the kitchen and the camera pans across the front room and we just have all of the men having fallen asleep. It's a sign that the dinner went well because they ate a lot of food and ended up falling asleep in front of the television. So that made Debra very happy. The image of Raymond in the chair with the tiny little dog in his arm was just absolutely fabulous. And of course, just before that, we get a really moving scene with Debra and Marie, where Marie actually apologizes to Debra and reveals that she went through something similar with her mother-in-law. And I think it's quite an eye-opening discussion. Obviously, it's very moving. It's very respectful of Marie to finally, apologize to Debra like that. But I think it's also some food for thought for people who are in a similar situation. That if you are trying to host your own Thanksgiving dinner, which is your perfect right to do, your own parents or in-laws might have an emotional response to that because they once upon a time wanted to host it, and now you are technically taking it away from them, or pushing it in the rotation so they only get to do it once every 3 years. It's basically about being mindful of other people's emotions and how they might respond to that situation. But I don't blame Marie. I don't think she was in the wrong for feeling upset, especially if it was just before Thanksgiving that this had been announced. If the previous year Debra had said, okay, next year I want to do it, she would have had a full year to come to terms with it. I do think it probably was a little bit selfish on Debra's part to spring this on her just before Thanksgiving. It would have made more sense if they'd stuck with the plan and then she revealed, next year I'd like it to be my turn. That would have been the respectful thing to do. But at the same time, I don't blame her for wanting to host her own Thanksgiving. So it's definitely all about being mindful of other people's perspectives and how they might feel in this situation. It's also a very funny episode. A little bit educational for me, and definitely very well written, brilliant performances, brilliantly filmed. And as I said, it's one that I watched on Thanksgiving Day in the States, and it made me, this and a couple of others, I think I probably watched about 6 or 7 Thanksgiving episodes. I'm not sure. I watched a lot of Everybody Loves Raymond that day. But it's one of those episodes that made me re-fall in love with the show again. And I'm really pleased that it did, because I'm really enjoying rewatching it. And even though I'd just seen this one, Turkey or Fish, is still a really brilliant episode. And I'm glad that I watched it again.